When we first introduced the African masks, you can print out the PDF documents from the website provided, and you're going to see lots of different examples of African masks with lots of different geometric abstract designs. So in this way, we can introduce the concept of abstract, which is taking something and minimizing it to shapes and lines and colors rather than being representational. And we can also talk about how African mask makers all designed theirs in a very unique way. So an example of how they've taken a face and made it abstracted is that you can still see that it represents eyes and a nose and a mouth, but they've changed those representational images to be designed in a very unique and stylized way. So they've used diamonds for eyes and a simple shape for a nose and lots of patterns that wouldn't actually be on the human face. When we talk about how to create emphasis in a work, there's several ways that we can create emphasis, which is having one part be the focal point. So when we look at this mask, the eyes are the emphasis, the focal point. And the artist did that by creating really, really large shapes, so our eye is drawn there. And also there's a lot of negative space, a lot of empty space there, which also draws the eye to that part. In this example, the artist created the emphasis on this area here. So this area has lots and lots of pattern. It's very, very busy, and therefore our eye is drawn here first, and that's emphasized. In this example, there's not really a clear emphasis. There's a lot of design happening everywhere, not a lot of negative space in one area. So it's really hard to figure out what the focal point or the emphasis is. But one way that we can create a focal point in something like this is to use color. So you can pick one area to be the emphasis and use a brighter or bolder color there so that that area does stand out from the rest. For younger students, you can use the printout in the lesson plan that already has face shapes or mask shapes there. But with older students, we would like to practice how to draw really, really smooth circular shapes. So an easy way to practice that is to first use markings on the paper to where we want the circle or the oval to go. So if I'm going to be drawing my mask on this paper, I would determine that the top of my mask would go here, the bottom would go about here, and let's say I wanted the sides about this wide. I could then measure using my fingers or like this, and then go ahead and do a mark on the other side. So now I have marks that show the tops and the sides of my shape, and it's going to be centered in my paper. But now comes the hard part. A lot of students, when they draw, they want to go really slowly and push really, really hard. So they would go and start drawing the shape like that, one solid hard line. But when we're drawing smooth things especially, we want to use really, really loose lines as we go. So here's an example. If I wanted to do an oval, I would go and like loosely go from mark to mark, pulling my pencil up and around. And if you can see, there's not just one line going around, it's maybe 5 or 6 loose lines. And once I begin to get the shape I want, I can make it darker after I figured out that it's the shape and the symmetry that I'm looking for. So in this way, I can then go back and erase the light lines that are not symmetrical with the others. But it's important that you kind of get this kind of rhythm, this round rhythm with your hands going around, and in that way you can get a smoother shape. Once the students have that, they're going to do a really light line across the center. They are going to do eyes on this line. And there's lots of different eye shapes. They can even make up their own or get inspired by the mask images that you've put on the table. And then after that, you want to have them determine what the focal point will be. So I'm going to have the focal point be this kind of center area along with the nose. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the shape I'm going to do for that. I'm going to go ahead and fill that in with some more pattern to make it emphasized. But I'm also going to do a mouth right down here. All right, so that's my face, and now I get to go in and design it. So my focal point, like I said, is this. So I'm going to start by designing that. And I'm going to use lots of pattern to emphasize that. So I can go in and just start adding to it. And I would do that on both sides. I can add some pattern and some other things in the center. And I would just go ahead and go through and start with that, and then go ahead and add design to the other parts. So I can add some design to the other features. And I can also, right now, make my mask asymmetrical. So right now, if you cut it down the middle, both sides are the same. But we can also design our mask with asymmetrical design elements, meaning that both sides are different. So if I wanted to add some design on this side, I could do that. And I could balance it out with different design on the other side. So you can see that both sides have similar weight, but they're not exactly the same. For example, on this side, I could add a design element and do a similarly weighted design element, but that's different on the other side. So again, they balance, but they're not symmetrical. After the students design their mask, then they can take colored pencils or markers and fill in that design.